Welcome to Level 10 Construction. You will be working at the 2747 Park Boulevard building project in beautiful Palo Alto. Your field team is your Senior Superintendent, Don Haynes, Brian Stewart, your Superintendent, Jaime Mendez, and your foremen are Robert Hernandez, Jeremy McNair, and Daniel Sanchez. Your project manager is Kelly Hoskovic. Your project engineer is Lucas Maravich, and your field office coordinator is Sonia Obregon. This team is here to help. If you have any questions, please go to them and do not be afraid. Palo Alto has a strict noise ordinance that restricts start time to be no earlier than 8 a.m. Weekend work requires special permission. Weekly and all-hands safety meetings are Tuesdays at 12:35. Orientations are mandatory for all personnel working on site and will be typically at 7 a.m. Please contact Brian Stewart at 805-701-5003 to schedule in advance. Safety is first. We need your help. We are beginning a journey together. We need your talents. Together we will build at the highest conservation, sustainability, and value. We will plan and perform our jobs so we will continue to be injury-free. Superintendents, supervisors, and foremen will be safety role models for you. You must understand that the safe way to do our tasks before you start. You are authorized to stop work when you or anyone else is in danger. What does it mean to work injury-free? Being injury-free means that you do not have a work-related injury or illness. You leave the job at the end of the day proud of the work that you have accomplished and the fact that no one has hurt. If you are a superintendent, supervisor, or foreman, the people you led today returned home safely. How do you do it? You need to pre-plan your work. You need to use your training or ask for additional training. You need to review your job hazard analysis, be well rested and alert, stretch and flex before you start, think before you act, and complete pre-task planning. We are working safely for our families, and we must protect the public and the tenants we work around. Program consists of an injury and illness prevention program, a heat illness and prevention program, drug-free workplace, stormwater pollution prevention plan, personal protective equipment, hard hat. You're required to wear safety glasses. You need to have VT or V3 class visibility, long pants, ATSM approved footwear, gloves, and shirts with sleeves. PPE may include a face shield when grinding or using a demo saw, hearing protection when exposed to noises greater than 85 decibels, fall protection when exposed to heights of 6 feet or greater, and a hood when with an approved air source when sandblasted. Respirators may be required when grinding, bushing, or overhead drilling concrete to prevent silica overexposure, when burning, torching, or welding with some metals, when the safety data sheet requires it. You need to inspect your PPE before each use. Here are some examples of some PPE that is not ready for use. It needs to be replaced. It only works when you wear it properly. Heat illness prevention program. At least 2 quarts of clean, cool water should always be readily available per person. Shade should be available at 80 degrees. At 95 degrees, the foreman will increase heat illness monitoring and take proactive steps to prevent heat-related injuries. All employees have a right to take a break if they feel sick. Notify L10 management in the event someone is believed to be sick or injured. The first symptom of heat illness is thirst and sweating. The first stage of heat illness is heat stress and heat fatigue. That's when you get muscle cramps or headaches. The second stage is heat exhaustion. It's when you get dizzy or nauseous or disoriented. Heat stroke is when you actually stop sweating, you can lose consciousness, you can get brain damage, or you can die. From heat exhaustion, they need to take a break. They need to be monitored while they're on break until their symptoms are alleviated. If someone is suffering from heat stroke, we need to dial 911. Please inform us if you are on prescription medication that may impair you. We want to work with you. This is an alcohol and drug-free worksite. Post-incident testing. If you are involved in an incident that causes more than $500 in damage, you may be subject to a drug screen. If you receive medical care due to a job-related injury, you are required to take a drug screen. Suspicion-based testing is also in effect on this job site. Materials must be stored in an orderly manner. Work areas must be cleaned daily. Spills must be immediately cleaned up, and materials exposed to the weather must be cleaned up in accordance with the SWIP. Flammable liquids. Proper storage areas are mandatory. No plastic containers. Approved safety cans are required to be metal. They are required to have spark arresting screens, spring-loaded lids, and they are required to be labeled. Any activity creating a flame or spark requires a hot work permit. Hot work permits typically expire after 1 week. Fire extinguishers. You must have a fire extinguisher for hot work, fuel storage, fueling, flammable combustible materials, temporary heating devices, etc. Electricity. Consider everything to be energized until tested. GFCIs are mandatory. Inspect tools and cords for damage or wear. Immediately remove defective items for the job. Fall protection is required at 6 feet. Guardrails, safety nets, fall arrest restraint systems, covers, etc. are to be used to keep employees from falling 6 feet or more. If you do not have some sort of fall protection and do not know what to do, contact your supervisor. No one will be exposed to fall distances greater than 15 or one more floor, even if OSHA regulations allow it. Guardrails. Top rail needs to be at 39 to 45 inches, or there needs to be an X bracing intersecting at 42 and 48 inches, 18 to 24 inches, or an X bracing intersection at 20 and 30 inches. These guardrails need to be rated to 200 pounds. You must inspect your gear before each use. Wear your fall protection properly. Ask your supervisor. You need to choose the right fall protection for the job. Protect your floor openings. Do not start making a hole until you are ready to protect it after it is cut. Hole covers must be labeled and rated twice to the intended load. Hole covers must be secured from movement. Ladder use. Make sure ladders are secure from movement. Make sure ladder access is protected. Use the correct ladder for the job. No metal ladders. No type 2 or type 3 ladders. Inspect your ladder before each use. These are examples of improper step ladder use. Don't do it. Do not stand on the top cap or the rung below the top cap. Make sure the step ladder is fully extended. Ensure a firm, flat surface for your step ladder. Check stickers for legibility and special instructions. Inspect your ladders for damage. Lean into the ladder when you're working on the ladder. Use 3 points of contact as you ascend and descend the ladder. The top cap is not for tool storage. Extension ladders. They must be at least 3 feet above the landing. They must be tied off or secured from movement. They need to be set up at a 1:4 base to height ratio. Use of the top 3 rungs on an extension ladder is prohibited. Scaffolds. All scaffold erection and use requires a level 10 pre-task prior to use. In the case that scaffold requirements differ from company to company, the most stringent requirements will be adhered to. If you need to use a scaffold, don't until you have gone over and signed a pre-task with your foreman advisor. These scaffolds include Perry scaffolds. These include aluminum scaffolds, rolling scaffolds. Air-driven equipment. Air hoses greater than a half-inch in diameter must have a safety device such as an OSHA valve, Hansen valve, or safety check valve. A safety cable or whip check is required in addition to a secure connection. Always wait 30 seconds after a misfire with powder-actuated tools. Know your surroundings before using a powder-actuated tool. Use the appropriate load for your powder-actuated tool. Never leave your gun or loads unattended. Never leave your gun loaded when it is not in use. Properly dispose of unused loads. Have a sign within 50 feet. Yell shot before each firing. If you are firing more than 30 shots in an 8-hour time-weighted average period, you should be using lead-free loads. Pre-tests are required with the site safety coordinator for all excavations. Dig permits will be given and typically expire after 1 week. Crews should make appointments with the safety coordinator to pre-task prior to digging. They should bring the following to the pre-task: as-bills, USA North permit number, proof of Cal OSHA activity notification. All operators and spotters involved in the excavation need to be present at the pre-task. Lift operations, forklifts, aerial lifts, scissor lifts, etc. Operators must be trained and have training certification available if requested. Review hand signals with the signalman before operation. Confined spaces. Do not enter a confined space unless the atmosphere has been tested, you have been trained, and you are following the Level 10's confined space program. Moving equipment. If there's no seatbelt, there's no seat. Backup alarms must be working. Rollover protection must be in place. Safety devices must be in operable condition. Damaged equipment is not to be used. Vehicles should not be left idle more than 3 minutes. Special safety precautions may be required when using vehicles indoors. Give me 20 program. All equipment operators are responsible for the safety of the people on the ground next to them. All workers on the ground are responsible for to be visible to the equipment operators. Operators and ground personnel will acknowledge that they have seen each other. There are many hazards in above ceiling work. Some examples are exposed wires, falls, and sharp objects. If you have work above the ceiling that requires 80% or more of your body in the ceiling, L10 must be informed of the work, and the area must be inspected by your foreman before you proceed. Job hazard analysis will be conducted throughout the life of the job. Safety data sheets or material safety data sheets will be available for review prior to exposure to potentially hazardous or harmful substances. There will most likely be chemicals on this job that are known to cause cancer or reproduction harm. This is the Proposition 65 warning. Bathrooms. Toilets and wash stations are available. Toilets should be a minimum of 50 feet away from the storm drain. Avoid using building wash and sanitation facilities. Do not damage or deface the toilets. Separate toilets will be provided for women. Let your L10 team know if there is a problem. Water and mold prevention plan. Stop and or limit any water intrusion. If there is water intrusion, the second step is to notify applicable parties. The third step is to photograph and document the event. The fourth step is to remove excess water, and the fifth step is to record the date and time. Protection. Smoking is only allowed in designated areas. Smoking is prohibited in the bathroom. Cigarette butts need to be safely disposed of. Stormwater pollution prevention plan. Storm drains run into an underwater stream that is very sensitive to pollutants. Only clean water goes down the storm drains on site and around the site. No chemicals, wash water, or chlorinated water from pipe hydrant flushing can go down the storm drains. Sediment. Mud is a pollutant. Try to stay on pavement or rock surfaces with your vehicles. A soiled cars, trucks, and equipment must go through the rumble racks and be cleaned at the tire wash station before exiting onto the street. If mud is tracked onto the street or asphalt, it must be cleaned up immediately. Best management practices. BMPs are installed throughout the site. Do not run over, damage, or remove wattles, silt fences, rock bags, inlet protection, etc. without returning the BMPs to the condition you found them in. Only water can be dumped on the ground. If there is a fuel, fluid, or concrete spill, it must be contained or cleaned up immediately. Contaminated soil will be properly disposed of. Mortar, fireproofing, bags of cement or concrete must be stored on pallets or plastic to prevent ground contamination. And these materials must also be covered. All fuel, waste tanks, and paint should be double contained. Drywall should be stored off the ground, protected from moisture, and prevented from being picked up in the wind. When there is a 0.01 inch of rain in the prediction, stockpiles of dirt, rock, and gravel must be covered. Grindings will be covered or at least wattled. All tarps on covered stockpiles will be weighed down to prevent them from blowing off in the wind. Stockpiles must be at least 50 feet away from a storm drain. Debris boxes should be placed at a minimum from the storm drains. All debris boxes will be covered during rains to prevent pollution. Injuries. If you were injured, let us know immediately. We have first aid trained people on site, or we can bring paramedics onto the site. Remember, we are building at the highest levels of safety, environmental preservation, sustainability, quality, and value. You always have a right to stop work to mitigate a hazard. Thank you for your time. Have a safe work time. It's hammer time.